Just how bad was the damage from Cyclone Pam in Vanuatu? A group of thugs gang rape a nun in India, and as South Korea and Japan sit down at the table once more to discuss the sexual enslavement of women, a Tokyo-based activist shed some light on Prime Minister Abe. These stories are coming up next on the Asia Brief. A very good Monday morning, the 16th of March to you. My name is Steve Miller, your host, and I'd like to thank you for joining me today. Now, this past weekend, Cyclone Pam, a Category 5 storm, pummeled the island archipelago nation of Vanuatu. At least 8 are confirmed dead and caused some major flooding in the capital city. Vanuatu is a relatively small archipelago and home to some 267,000 people among its 80-plus islands. Cyclone Pam had intensified to a Category 5 storm this past Friday. It's the second strongest cyclone on record since 1970 and the strongest since Haiyan ravaged the Philippines in 2013. The Vanuatu Disaster Management Office issued red alerts and advised residents to head to shelters. Meteorologists predicted the storm to have wind speeds of up to 230 kilometers per hour, but found them much stronger, clocking them at 300 kilometers per hour. While Pam's path wasn't set to make landfall in the capital of Port Vila, it was expected the wind speeds of up to 165 kilometers per hour would hit the city. Save the Children's Vanuatu director Tim Skiro said up to 50,000 children would be at risk, but UNICEF put that number much higher at 54,000. Currently, at least 8 people have been confirmed dead, with dozens more yet to be confirmed. The official death roll is expected to rise once aid workers and emergency personnel are able to get to the hardest hit areas. Since the storm, communications in the island chain have been down or spotty. UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon said the impact and scope of the disaster caused by the cyclone wasn't clear yet, but he feared the damage and destruction could be widespread. Vanuatu President Baldwin Lonsdale said, "I do not really know what the impact of the cyclone has had on Vanuatu. I'm speaking to you today with a heart that is so heavy. I stand to appeal on behalf of the government and the people to give a helping hand in this disaster." Aid did begin arriving on Sunday, but what they found was complete devastation. Some on the ground have actually called this storm apocalyptic because of the damage it has left. Now, while in the capital, there are buildings made out of cement, once you move away from that populated area into the more rural areas, you find that the buildings are thatched roof houses. They're made with wood on the side, and they simply don't have the ability to stand up to the force of a Category 5 storm. And this unfortunately means that the loss of life in this kind of disaster could be high. I certainly hope that's not the case, and as more information becomes available, I'll be sure to share it with you. This past Saturday in India, a story broke that truly is disgusting. A group of 6 men broke into a convent and school and gang raped a nun in her 70s. Police say the 6 men entered the Convent of Jesus and Mary School in Rangat, the eastern Indian state of West Bengal. Thus far, none of the assailants have been captured. The nun, who is said to be in her 70s, was hospitalized in serious condition. Students, parents, and teachers blocked a nearby railroad and highway for several hours, demanding swift police action. This comes after India prohibited the release of India's Daughter, a film detailing the gang rape of a 23-year-old woman. In the film, Murkesh Singh says, "A girl is far more responsible for rape than a man." That comment sparked outrage, and in fact, data shows an 875% increase in rape cases over the past 40 years. Some attribute the increase in rape cases due to a lack of law enforcement in rural areas. The whole subject of violence against women in India has received a lot of press, especially since the film India's Daughter was prohibited from being screened. And it wasn't too long ago that a mob attacked a prison and from within those walls withdrew a suspected rapist and beat him to death. Now, these 6 individuals who have not been caught committed a horrific crime, a crime against a woman, an elderly woman, a woman who devoted her life to God. It is an absolutely reprehensible crime. And the community is absolutely right to call for swift justice and demand that the ultimate punishment be issued under India's laws. South Korea and Japan are scheduled to sit down at the table once more this week to resume discussions on resolving the long and outstanding issue of the sexual enslavement of women during World War II, or simply the comfort woman. And it's come to light that one potential roadblock to that may actually be Prime Minister Shinzo Abe from Japan. Mina Watanabe, Secretary General of the Tokyo-based Women's Active Museum on War and Peace, who spoke at a seminar held at Johns Hopkins University's School of Advanced International Studies, said that Prime Minister Abe never pronounced the word apology on the issue of the comfort women, noting that former Prime Minister Yoshihiko Noda did. Watanabe said Abe is very consistent in denying the historical facts of the comfort woman system, and just a month before he became Prime Minister for the second time, he endorsed a revisionist opinion, saying comfort women were mere prostitutes. Watanabe also said if the government of Japan admits to the crime of its own military and meets its obligation under international law to provide reparations to survivors, it would set a significant benchmark that states are held accountable for their crimes even after 70 years. Xu Huakong, executive director of the Taipei Women's Rescue Foundation, said, "Sexual slavery, a form of wartime violence directed against women, is one of the worst human rights abuses of our day. For over 70 years, the Japanese government still denies any legal responsibility over the crime it committed against comfort women and refuses to compensate survivors directly." She also urged Japan to incorporate the history of comfort women into the national curriculum so that younger generations can understand such crimes should never happen again. On this matter, I have two things to add. Number one, Japan did pay South Korea some $800 million in 1965 when bilateral relations were restored. Unfortunately, the South Korean government took that deal and made it a secret. In fact, it wasn't revealed until about 2010. They used the money that Japan paid to build POSCO, a huge steel company. They used it to build railroads, expand the infrastructure, some dams. Many South Koreans still are unaware that Japan paid that money that was supposed to go to comfort women, that was supposed to go to conscripted workers. They simply aren't aware that their own government sideswiped that money. Secondly, Abe and his cronies are not going to change. They aren't going to issue the apology that South Korea and China desire. It's just not going to happen. And they are also not willing to listen to the world about what history says Japan did during World War II. So all these activists truly need to change their tactics. They need to look to Japan's private sector and the young and upcoming politicians and empower those individuals to make changes in Japan's policy. Well, my friends, those are today's stories, but I'd love to hear from you. What do you think about them? So please leave a comment. Talk to me on Facebook or Twitter. I'd love to hear from you. Be sure to keep up with more news from the region by following Asian News Weekly on Facebook or Twitter. You can also send an email to the show with your questions, your comments, and your feedback. Just drop a line to podcast@asiannewsweekly.net. If you enjoyed today's show, please share it with your friends, and while you're at it, subscribe. Subscribing is absolutely free and can be done on our website, asiannewsweekly.net, or on your favorite podcast application. Well, my friends, that is it for me today. Thank you so much for joining me. My name is Steve Miller, reminding you to be true to yourself and always be awesome.